Welcome to rSlash Am I the Butthole, where OP kidnaps her own baby. Am I the butthole for kidnapping my baby, causing my husband to have a panic attack? I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I recently started working again after having my daughter, who's 4 months old. Daycare is too expensive, so my husband, who's 35, reluctantly agreed to stay home. It's important to note that he's been unemployed since 2021. He receives benefits. It's also important to know that he's extremely lazy. He doesn't cook, clean, or help out in any way. I was nervous about leaving the baby home with her father, but I had no choice. When I came back from work, the baby was clean and sleeping. The next few times I came home, he was either playing with her, feeding her, or out for a walk with her. I was happy. A few days ago, my neighbor told me that as soon as I leave, the baby cries, and she cries for hours. My neighbor said that she knocked on our door, and my husband finally answered it. He had been sleeping. I realized that my husband sleeps all day, and right before I come home, he pretends to care for her. So I decided to take the day off work. I left home at my regular time, waited 30 minutes, and then went home. Sure enough, he was knocked out of sleep with his stupid noise-canceling headphones on. I went to my daughter's room, scooped her up, and took her to my friend's house. I waited about 2 hours and finally called him to tell him that I was coming home early. He called me back saying that he can't find the baby. He told me that he was going to call the cops, but before he did, I told him what I did. He called me a butthole and a lot of other words too. When I got home, his mother was there calming his nerves because he had a panic attack. She also called me a butthole. My husband decided to sleep at her house. Family members are telling me that I'm a terrible person. I know that it was extreme, but I don't know if I would consider myself a butthole. Opie, let's be super clear. What your husband's doing here has absolutely crossed over into divorce territory. There are times my wife is busy and I have to watch the baby. There's times I'm busy and my wife has to watch the baby. If either one of us spent that entire time napping while the baby was up around doing baby things just completely uncared for, yeah, either one of us would be looking at divorce in that scenario. It's literally dangerous. Anything could happen to the baby. The baby could literally be kidnapped just like you kidnapped it. And then on top of that, what does this guy offer? What does he do? He doesn't work. He doesn't do childcare. He just naps? He just sits around napping? Why are you with this guy? What does he provide? What value does he add to your life? He is a 35-year-old man who's unemployed and can't even bother to take care of his own child. Leave him, OP. I know childcare is expensive, but you're not getting childcare anyways, so what difference does it make? OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your husband 4 out of 5 buttholes. What a loser. Am I the butthole for revealing why I rejected a promposal nearly 10 years ago? I'm a 27-year-old woman who attended school in the UK. Towards the end of our final year of school, when we turn 18, our schools organize something called a formal, which I suppose is a bit like a prom without the romantic aspects, as you're not expected to go with anybody. And the whole idea of promposals generally isn't something that's done here. Nearly 10 years ago, as I was preparing to leave school, I found out that not only did a boy in my class have a massive crush on me for years, but he was also planning one of these massive promposals that are often done at proms. He had always been a horrendous bully to me. He would go from calling me hideous and claiming that I would die alone and unloved, to stealing my friend's phone to get my number, or sneaking up behind me and cutting off strands of my hair to keep, or going so far as to find my house through my father's very distinctive car. Naturally, when the day for his promposal came along, he came out with a sign in front of the entire school, and I bluntly said no and walked away. I don't like confrontations or arguments, but I had no intention of sparing his feelings after all that he'd done, and I was honestly just uncomfortable and wanted to leave. He badgered me until the day I left school for turning him down and being heartless. His friends did the same, but I didn't care. I recently met one of his old friends in my old town. I went to the business where one of them was working, and he kept bringing the incident up, saying that my bully had gotten depressed after we left school and hadn't dated at all because he was embarrassed from the rejection and still hung up over me. He kept asking me why I felt that it was okay to reject him like that over some nasty words, and if I was really that petty. I got sick of it, so I told him. Turns out that this guy never knew that the bully had bullied me. All of his other friends had been lying to him about the bullying. The friend abruptly left without a word, but apparently the gossip did the rounds. Now the friend group is divided in two. Many of those who didn't know about the bullying are pissed at him for lying, and pissed that their other friends hid what was happening because they think that it went too far. The others are pissed at me for airing the bully's dirty laundry. The bully's parents also know the truth now, and now they're pissed at him for lying and that he basically stalked me. Which brings up the question of whether or not they want to leave their bully's son any of their real estate property. I wonder if I should have just let his friends be mad at me. I'll probably never see them again anyway. I didn't know that he had been lying to everyone, but I also didn't expect this to potentially ruin the life of someone that I haven't seen for nearly a decade. Am I the butthole for telling his friend the truth about what happened? OP, why do you feel bad about your bully/stalker getting what he deserved? If I were you, I'd be ecstatic with this outcome. This guy made your life miserable for years, and you finally got revenge 10 years later. This is the type of thing people fantasize about, and you feel bad about it? Besides, you didn't do a single thing wrong here. All you did was tell the truth, OP. OP, I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your bully and his lying friends 4 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for leaving my husband at home while I spend the week at my brother's because of how he buys groceries? I've been in a committed relationship with my husband for 17 years, and overall, things have been great. We've had a few rough patches, but what's important to note is that while he earns more than me and is considered the main provider, I have a substantial trust fund that ensures we're financially stable. I work part-time as a teacher while attending university, earning less than him, and most of my income goes towards tuition. Our household income exceeds $200,000 annually, while the average in our area is below $50K. One ongoing issue we have is my husband's frugality. He likes to control my spending and have the final say on how he uses his earnings. It's worth mentioning that I've never used any of his income, and I have no intention of doing so. However, the main point of contention between us is his frequent visits to food banks. Despite having more than enough food at home, he insists on going to food banks to save money. He intentionally looks disheveled and uses our beat-up car to blend in, even though he's never experienced food scarcity. I have explained to him the need for food donations in our community, even showing him social media posts from local food banks, but he remains indifferent. I suggested that he volunteer or donate to gain first-hand experience, but he refuses. The unfortunate part is that since we're never short on food, most of what he brings home ends up getting thrown away. Today, I discovered our fridge filled with fresh produce and meat that clearly didn't come from our regular grocery store. When I confronted him, he admitted going to a food bank after seeing a Facebook post about a donation of fresh food. People on social media were already asking if anything was left, and there wasn't. I showed him these comments, but he brushed them off, claiming that people should have gone earlier. Exhausted by the situation, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother for the weekend, asking for space to think things over. My husband accused me of overreacting, being vindictive, and threatening to go back to the food banks regardless of my feelings. His family is also messaging me, calling me a butthole and urging me to stop interfering with his choices. I turned off my phone, but now they're bombarding my brother with messages. Thankfully, he supports my decision and ignores them. All I want is to enjoy the rest of my week without being angry at my husband. Yeah, I could let this go and not scold him, but the food that he takes could have gone to people who truly need it. I'm not leaving my husband, but I need a few days away to gain some clarity. Am I wrong for wanting this space? Yo, this guy makes 6 figures at minimum, and he spends his free time stealing food from poor people. Then, when you take some time for yourself because your husband is being a terrible person who's super toxic and selfish, he gets mad at you and recruits his family to harass you? What is with this guy? OP, you handled this situation about as well as you possibly could have. You expressed your concerns in a healthy way, and when he escalated, you took time to cool off. Like, why would he be mad at you for handling it that way? OP, let's be super clear. Your husband isn't frugal, he's a selfish thief. I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your husband 2.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for wanting my wife to stay up during a road trip and talk to me? I'm writing this right now at the hotel where I'm staying because I'm genuinely at a loss for words. I don't think that I'm in the wrong, but at the same time, she looks really pissed at me. Me, my wife, and our 2-year-old are going on our first family road trip to California. We rotate driving in shifts, but the problem is that when I was driving, my shift fell during the night, and so I was feeling really lonely and bored as I was driving. I'm not someone who can be left to his own thoughts very well, and I need people around me. I thrive on energy and excitement. My wife is a bit of the opposite. She's generally fine with being left alone and can sit quietly for hours and hours upon end. The problem is that around 11 p.m., I was driving and my wife and our son were in the back seat. I was feeling isolated, so I shook her awake, but then our son woke up, and, well, you can probably guess what happened next. Once he stopped crying, my wife began to quietly blow up about how much of a dick I was being. I told her that it wasn't fair for her to just sleep like that, and it made me feel like a driver. What? She then said that she doesn't force me to stay awake or engage with her, but I told her that's a cheap blow because we're not the same people. And I kept my mouth shut while she was driving because I know she doesn't like distractions, even though it bothered me terribly. So the least she could do is stop being selfish and keep me sane. Despite my perfectly logical answer... Alright, hold on. This feels like a troll. I think this is a troll. This sentence, this is a bit too obvious, isn't it, you guys? Despite my perfectly logical answer, she apparently got emotional and then started whisper screaming about how raising one toddler is hard enough and that she didn't know there was another one in the car who needed his whims catered to at every moment. And at that point, since she got rude, I decided to disengage. Now our whole family is falling apart and she's making me out to be the bad guy. Come on, man, just get earphones. Listen to a podcast, like the rSlash podcast, for example. Listen to some YouTube videos. How can you expect your wife to stay awake and keep you company during your shift, but then also stay awake during her shift? So basically, she has to stay awake during the entire road trip. And it doesn't occur to you why that might be a bad idea because you could all die because you could fall asleep on the road? I think this is a troll. This has got to be a troll, right? This guy can't possibly be this dumb. I don't know. I guess I'll give you 2 out of 5 buttholes because what you're expecting of your wife here is super unreasonable and super illogical. Am I the butthole for not using my husband's hilarious gift? My husband is 29 and I'm a 26-year-old woman. We've been married for 4 years. I had a great job in sales before COVID, but we found out during the pandemic that things just worked better with my husband at work and me at home. He earns enough to support both of us. I never thought I'd end up being a traditional wife, but given that he's the breadwinner, I sometimes feel as though I should pick up a lot of the slack at home. I'm not a great cook, but I'm sociable and I enjoy being the hostess. When my husband has friends over to watch soccer, I prep a huge tray of snacks, keep the beers on ice, and pop in with drink and food top-ups during the game. I don't stay to watch, but I do ask the guys how they're doing, just polite chit-chat. They all seemed into it, and they often comment that my husband has done well with such a great wife. It's a nice setup. Last week, my husband came home with a beautifully gift-wrapped box and said that he got me a little something to wear when his friends are next over. I do my best to dress nicely when they're over, so I figured that it would be a pretty dress or something. He had a huge grin on his face, so I was so excited. I opened the box to find a red latex mini dress and a ball gag. The gag was designed to look like a soccer ball, and the dress was in his team's color. I didn't know what to say at first. I was so confused. He's never really been into anything like that. He's very vanilla. I asked if it was a joke, and at first he said no, and told me that his friends wouldn't believe how lucky he was if I walked in with snacks like that. I can't remember what I said next, but then he told me that it would be hilarious if I wore it and I should lighten up. I gave him a nervous laugh and told him that I thought it was funny too. This morning, he put both items on my dresser and said that he was looking forward to seeing me in them when the guys were around tomorrow. I reminded him that he said that it was a joke, and he got a bit sulky and said that he can't believe I don't have a sense of humor. But from what he's saying, it sounds like he's expecting me to wear it. I'm so confused because, 1, I don't know if he's doing this as a joke because his friends think I talk too much, or 2, if he'd get off on me being humiliated. He says that I'm being uptight and called me out for being a butthole, but I honestly don't think I'm being unreasonable. Am I the butthole? Alright, down in the comments, Big Cups 321 is really hitting the nail on the head here. WTF? If this is something he's into, this is not the way to introduce it. And if humor really is his goal, tell him that his friends would find it even funnier if he wore it, which is undeniably true. And then you can get upset if he doesn't go along with that, because that would make him uptight, and where's his sense of humor? 100% not the butthole. Yeah, OP, if there's like a kink or fetish here, I don't think the kink is latex. I think the kink is objectifying and humiliating his wife. If he's into that, then, that's his prerogative. But to force it on you in front of others with no warm-up or conversation, super douchey. OP, I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your husband 3 out of 5 buttholes. That was rSlash Am I the Butthole? And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.